At the beginning of the drama, we see the female lead Jang. She has come to MH Company for an interview. Many people are there for the interview. Then an employee, Chao Na, comes in and congratulates everyone, saying, "Today at 2 p.m., you will have your interview and it will be your last round." While leaving, she also says, "Don't be too happy. The person you are going to meet is stricter than me." In the next scene, we see the male lead Yuan. His assistant tells him, "If nothing is done, another company will buy all the stocks." Then we are shown Mr. Dulé, the CEO of the other company, who talks about buying the stocks. However, he learns that MH Company has already purchased the stocks, which makes him angry. Yuan, who is an executive at MH Company, asks his assistant, "Have the stocks been purchased?" The assistant replies, "Yes, you are very intelligent." Yuan tells him to leave, saying, "I need to sleep." In the next scene, Qiaona asks Yuan, "I'm going to the investment party. How does this dress look?" Yuan says, "It's fine." Then she says, "Chinese business tycoons will attend the party. Will you come with me?" Yuan replies, "No, I can't go." Then she gives him the files of the candidates for the interview. Yuan starts checking their CVs. When he sees Zhang's CV, he is shocked. Qiaona says, "She is very intelligent." Yuan smiles when he sees a sheep drawing at the bottom of her CV. Then he tells Qiaona, "You go to the party, I will handle the interview." In the next scene, Jang arrives at MH Company for the interview. When she sees Yuan, she recognizes him. During the interview, Yuan asks, "Should we buy power stocks? Quickly analyze and tell me." Other members say, "Buying these stocks will benefit the company." However, Jang says, "No, the stocks of this company are going into loss, so buying them would be risky." Yuan replies, "In business, one has to take the risk of profit and loss." Yuan selects the other members but does not select Jiang. When Jiang is leaving, her heel hurts her, and Yuan observes this from above. Jiang, upon coming outside, feels very depressed. At that moment, one of Yuan's workers brings her a bandage and says, "Our boss sent this for you." Jiang asks, "Can I thank him through your phone?" She then records a voice message on his phone saying, "Mr. Yuan, I will not give up," and sticks the bandage on the phone before returning it. When Yuan listens to the recording, his worker says, "This is a very intelligent girl. Why didn't you select her?" Yuan replies, "This girl who has an allergy to tears will not be able to handle the hard work and stress of MH Company." Then Yuan recalls the past, where, during their childhood, he threw an insect on Jiang to tease her. Jiang got scared, started crying, and fainted. After examining her, the doctor told Jiang's father, "She has an allergy to tears, so try not to let her cry." Jiang's father then assigned Yuan the responsibility of protecting her and ensuring she doesn't cry. Yuan agreed. Then Jiang's father gives Yuan some currency. Yuan asks, "Will you give me money like this every month?" To which he replies, "Yes." Jang sees all of this happening. In the next scene, Zhang's friend asks her, "The person conducting your interview was your childhood friend who used to take money from your dad to protect you, right?" Jang replies, "He is not my friend. He is a thug who used to extort money from my father. I studied with him from elementary school to high school, but because of his actions, I started hating him." She adds, "I gave an excellent interview, but he rejected me just to trouble me." Then she gets a friend request notification on the WeChat app from someone named YS. She accepts the request, and it turns out to be Yuan. Yuan feels happy when the request is accepted. Jang then messages him, "Who are you?" Yuan replies, "I'm Yuan." Jang, angry, immediately unfriends him. Yuan sends her a message saying, "I didn't give you the job for your own good. You deserve a better job." He tries to send it, but it doesn't go through because Jang has already unfriended him. Seeing this, Yuan gets angry and says, "How dare she unfriend me so quickly? Who does she think she is?" Meanwhile, Jang tells her friend, "I will definitely work at MH Company and teach Yuan a lesson." Then she wonders how to do it. Her friend says, "I have many contacts. I will help you. I will ask Mr. Wang to arrange a ticket for BUI." Jang responds, "When you're there, act well and make it seem like Yuan is bullying you." Her friend reassures her, "Don't worry, I will handle everything." In the next scene, Jang arrives at the party. She accidentally bumps into Mr. Dulé, almost spilling wine on him. Jang apologizes, and he replies, "It's okay." At the party, Yuan notices Jang, and Jang signals to him as if to say, "I'll deal with you." Later at the party, Jang's friend approaches Yuan and intentionally spills wine on him. Yuan asks, "Who are you, and why are you doing this?" She starts acting and loudly says, "Did you all see this? The person who used to call me sweetheart doesn't even recognize me today." She begins crying fake tears. Jang watches her acting and smiles. Yuan notices Jang's smile and realizes it's all her plan. Yuan then asks Jang's friend, "You claim I'm your boyfriend. Do you know my phone number, my address, or my birthday?" Jang's friend is speechless and remains silent. Yuan then says, "See, this lady knows nothing about me. How can she be my girlfriend?" He then walks over to Jang and says, "This is my girlfriend." Hearing this, Jang runs away. She goes to the terrace shouting in anger, "Yuan is horrible!" Yuan follows her and says, "Are you saying something about me?" Jang asks, "How did you know I would be here?" Yuan replies, "Whenever you are upset, you come to the terrace." Jang then asks him, "Why didn't you give me a job at MH Company?" Yuan responds, "I did it for you. You wouldn't have been able to adjust there." Jang retorts, "It's better if you stop doing things for my good. You're like a horrible dream to me." Then a flashback to high school is shown. Jang had come on stage to give a speech, but her script was lost and she didn't know what to do. Everyone started mocking her, saying, "If you can't do it, step down." Jang began crying and then fainted. Yuan came up to her and handed her a script, saying, "Here's the script, read this." Then Jang says to him, "You deliberately hid my script to make this happen." In the present, Jang says to him, "Because of you, I had to change schools, and now you don't even want to give me a job at MH Company." He replies, "I don't want that. You wouldn't be able to handle the hard work and stress there because of your tear allergy." Jang says, "No matter what you do, I will work at MH Company." Then Jang starts feeling cold, so Yuan puts his coat on her. He says, "It's very cold outside. Let's go inside." But Jang refuses. Yuan holds her hand to take her inside, but she tries to free herself. In the struggle, she twists her ankle and is about to fall, but Yuan catches her. This brings them close, and they accidentally kiss. At that moment, reporters arrive and start taking their pictures. Yuan hides her under his coat and warns the reporters, "If you do anything, I will report you to the police." Hearing this, the reporters get scared and leave. Because of all this, Jang faints, and Yuan takes her to the hospital. The doctor checks Jang and tells Yuan that she is perfectly fine. Afterward, Yuan goes to Jang, takes her phone, and sends a message to her friend saying, "I'm at the hospital, come pick me up." He then adds himself to her WeChat contacts from her phone. Jang's friend, Lee, comes to see her. Yuan sees her from afar and leaves. When Jang regains consciousness, Lee is beside her. Lee asks, "What happened to you?" Jang asks, "Did you bring me to the hospital?" Lee replies, "No, you messaged me yourself to come." Jang says, "I didn't send any message." Then Jang checks her phone and sees that she sent an apology message to Mr. Yuan. She is shocked and says, "I would never do that." Then Lee notices a viral photo of Yuan and Jang on her phone and shows it to Jang. Upon seeing the photo, Jang faints again. Meanwhile, MH Company members are also looking at the same photo. Yuan's secretary arrives and asks, "What happened?" They reply, "You're always with Yuan, so you must know who this girl is." The secretary looks at the photo and says, "The girl's face isn't visible, so how can I know?" Then Chaona arrives and tells everyone, "Get back to work. If you don't work, you will all be fired," and tells them to delete the photos. Later, Yuan is looking at the same photo when Chang arrives, holding Jang's CV. Chang says, "This is the girl you like. You should give her an assistant job so she stays close to you." Yuan replies, "Go check this file properly and stop talking nonsense." In the next scene, Yuan meets Jang's landlady and says, "I'll give you a lot of money if you sell this house to me." The landlady agrees. Then he makes a call and says, "You need to put a house in this area up for rent online. The rent should be very low, and it should only be rented to one specific person." In the next scene, Jang gives Yuan a bag and says, "I will definitely get a job at MH Company." Yuan replies, "That job is not suitable for you. You won't be able to adjust there, so you can't work at MH Company." Hearing this, Jang feels very upset and says, "I will prove that I can work there." When Jang returns home, her landlady tells her, "You need to vacate the house because my son is coming back from abroad and will stay here." Jang becomes worried, takes her belongings, and goes to Lee's place, and she asks her to find a house for rent for herself. Jang and Lee are looking for a house when Lee says, "This house is very beautiful and located in a nice neighborhood." Jang says, "Then it must be expensive." But when they see the rent, it's surprisingly low, which shocks them. Lee calls the number to inquire about the rent. The person confirms that the rent is low, making Jang and Lee happy. Yuan then receives a message from his manager saying, "That girl has rented the house and will visit it at 1 p.m. Later, Yuan waits outside the house for Jiang. Jiang and Lee arrive, and Yuan secretly watches them. Jiang looks at the house and says, "I like it very much. so she decides to rent it. In the next scene, Jiang goes to the library to meet Lin Tai-mo, but is unable to enter without an appointment. Just then, Mr. Dulé arrives and says, "I'm the one you spilled wine on at the party." He helps her meet Lin Tai-mo. Jiang says, "Thank you," and tells Lin Tai-mo, "I gave a good interview at MH Company, but they rejected me." Lin Tai-mo decides to interview her again. Jiang answers all his questions briefly, which impresses him, and he offers her a job. Jiang is happy and calls Lee to share the news. Lee says, "I'm so happy for you." In the next scene, Jiang moves into her new house. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. When she opens the door, she finds Yuan standing there, which shocks her. She asks, "How do you know where I live?" Yuan replies, "I heard that new neighbors were moving in, so I came to say hello. How would I know that you'd be my neighbor?" Jang says, "So, the rent for this house is low because the neighbor is a monster like you. That's why no one likes to live here." Yuan asks, "Won't you invite me inside?" But Jang replies, "It's too late at night, so I can't let you in," and shuts the door on him. Yuan says, "No problem, maybe next time. You're here now, anyway." The story then shifts to their childhood. Yuan tells a boy, "Pull Jang's hair to see how she reacts." But Jang doesn't retaliate. Instead, she figures out that Yuan was behind it. She starts crying. Yuan comes to her and says, "Stop crying. Close your eyes." Later, Jang's dad confronts Yuan, saying Jang claims he bullies her to extort money. Yuan denies it and says, "I just want to toughen her up so she can face any situation without fear." Jang's dad agrees, saying, "In that case, it's fine." Yuan then asks Jang's dad, "Can I have my salary now?" And he happily gives it to him. In the next scene, Yuan is on his balcony when Jiang steps out onto hers. But upon seeing Yuan, she goes back inside. Later, as she is heading out, Yuan remarks, "Are you going to the interview in this dress?" Jiang retorts, "It's none of your business, Miru." Yuan says, "I found a job for you with a great salary. Forget about working at MH Company." Jiang replies, "I will prove to you that I can get a job there." In the next scene, Jiang goes to MH Company for work. People there comment, "She was rejected, so what is she doing here?" Meanwhile, an employee is explaining a project, but Yuan says, "This presentation is unacceptable," and fires him. Seeing all this, Jiang gets very angry at Yuan. Then Chao Na announces, 4 new people have joined the company after tough competition. Jiang is one of them, and Yuan is shocked to see her. Jiang gestures at him and starts smiling. Chao Na shows the new employees around the office and introduces Yuan as the executive chairman. Afterward, she leaves. In the next scene, the manager tells Yuan, Lin Tai-mo helped Jiang get this job. Meanwhile, some employees gossip about Jiang, speculating about whose support she used to join the company. Jiang overhears this and feels bad, and leaves from there. One employee consoles her, saying, "Don't mind what they're saying." Then Chang arrives and says to Jiang, "Yuan wants to meet you in his office." Jiang goes to Yuan's office and asks, "Why did you call me?" Yuan says, "I know you got this job through Lin Tai-mo's recommendation, but you don't understand my power. I can fire any employee at any time." He gives her a task and says, "Complete this quickly, and if there's a mistake, I'll fire you. You have 3 chances to prove yourself." Jiang responds, "I won't disappoint you, and I'll prove to everyone that I didn't get this job through any recommendation." Yuan replies, "I'm the wheel, and you're an ant." The wheel moves forward, leaving the ant behind. Jiang retorts, "Remember your words." Yuan says, "I doubt you'll last more than 2 weeks in this company." Jiang replies, "I'll prove you wrong." After leaving, she chats with Lee about her first day on the job. Later, Yuan approaches Jang and says, "The report you've prepared has many mistakes. Work properly or get ready to leave, and bring coffee to my room." After giving this order, he leaves. Jiang works in the library when Mr. Dulé arrives and meets her. He helps her prepare the report. While working, it gets quite late. When Jiang is about to leave, it starts raining heavily outside. Mr. Dulé offers her his umbrella and says, "My friend is coming to pick me up." Jiang takes the umbrella and says, "I'll return it to you." Then she leaves. Later, a lady approaches Mr. Dulé and asks, "Who is that girl?" He doesn't say much and replies, "I'm very hungry." In the car, the lady asks Mr. Dulé, "Have you found a way to defeat Yuan?" He says, "For now, I'll let him win, but next time, I'll take everything from him." In the next scene, Yuan asks Jiang about the report. Jiang shows it to him, but he doesn't like it. He says, "You've only moved the data around, but I need the truth." He tells her, "The chairman of Kelling Pharmacy has transferred all his assets to his own account, and the employee who revealed this has been fired. You need to gather information about this." Jiang agrees and says, "All right, I'll find out." Yuan says, "This was your first mistake. You have 2 chances left for this job." Jiang gets very angry at Yuan. She then calls Kelling Pharmacy and inquires about the chairman and learn He's gone to play golf. In the next scene, Jang goes to the golf stadium to meet the chairman of the pharmacy. She tries to talk to him, but he says, "Leave." Jang requests, "Can I check the company's files?" Initially, he refuses, but after Jang repeatedly asks, he says, "Fine, check them." Jang then leaves. The chairman says, "You'll never be able to beat me." In the next scene, Jang enters the company. A lady says, "Come with me," and takes her to a room where Yuan's assistant is already checking the files. Jang also starts checking the files. While working, it gets late. Yuan arrives and assistant says, "I'm tired of looking at these files." He hands Yuan a file and says, "I need to go to the restroom." Jang tells Yuan about the files she has checked and mentions many are still left to be reviewed. Meanwhile, the lady notices Chang going to the restroom. Jang gives Yuan some files to check and says, "There are so many wrinkles on your face." Yuan replies, "It's not easy to reach such a position in MH company. I've worked very hard, which is why I tell you this job isn't suitable for you. You won't be able to work here." Jang responds, "Your eyesight has been weak since childhood, so how will you even read this project?" She starts to leave, but Yuan grabs her and asks, "Now you're noticing wrinkles on my face?" Suddenly, the lights go out, and it gets dark. Jang asks, "What happened?" Yuan replies, "It seems the power is out." We then see the lady turning off the lights and messaging Mr. Dulé. "The work is done." Jang looks around for help, but Yuan says, "Don't worry, I'll check." He starts looking for his phone, but realizes, "I forgot to bring it." Jang laughs at him and says, "You look professional, but how can you be so irresponsible as to forget your phone?" Jang takes out her own phone, but its battery is dead. At that moment, Assistant Chung returns and asks, "Boss, what happened here?" Yuan says, "The lights are out. Go get someone to fix them." Chang leaves to find help. Jang starts yelling, "Help! Help!" loudly, but Yuan tells her, "It won't make any difference." Jiang remarks, "It seems like you're enjoying this." Yuan replies, "No, but I'm enjoying watching you." He then says, "This is a big room, there must be another light switch." Both of them start looking for it. Suddenly, Jiang says, "My periods had to start now of all times." Yuan says, "It seems the button is up there. I'll lift you so you can look for it." Jiang refuses. Yuan notices she's unwell and asks, "What happened to you?" Jiang replies, "I skipped lunch, so maybe that's why my stomach hurts." But Yuan realizes what's actually going on. He eventually finds the light switch and turns the lights back on. He gives Jiang his coat and says, "Come outside." Then both of them leave from there. In the next scene, Jiang is sleeping in Yuan's car. Yuan looks at her and says, "I told you that MH company is not for you." Then Yuan receives a message from assistant. "Boss, where are you?" Yuan replies, "We've come outside, so you should go home too." After that, Yuan goes to a shop to buy pads. He stands there thinking, "I've faced many difficulties in life, so buying pads from a shop is no big deal." He enters the shop. Li, who is working in the shop, sees Yuan and hides her face thinking, "This is Yuan, the one I spilled a drink on at the party, and now he has followed me here. If he sees me, I don't know what he will do." Yuan looks at the packets of pads and gets confused. There are so many of them. Which one should I buy? Meanwhile, Li sits down and starts doing her makeup. Yuan picks up several packs of pads and goes to the counter to pay. As Li finishes her makeup and stands up, Yuan recognizes her and says, "You're the one who spilled a drink on me at the party." Li pretends not to recognize him. Yuan says, "Bring hot water in a thermos cup." He then adds ginger tea powder and says, "If I throw this ginger tea on your face, do you know what will happen?" Li replies, "It was my twin sister who spilled the drink on you, so I apologize on her behalf." Yuan says, "Fine, I'll call the police." Li says, "Please don't do that. I'll pay you for your suit. Just give me some time. You can take anything from here. I'll pay the bill." Yuan tells her, "Sell these pads on discount and this bottle too." Li does as asked. Yuan then leaves the shop. In the next scene, Yuan is standing outside his car waiting for Jiang to wake up. When Jiang wakes up, Yuan says, "You're up." She replies, "Why didn't you wake me up?" Then she sees the pads and asks, "Why did you buy so many pads?" Yuan replies, "They were on discount, so I bought extra." He then gives her ginger tea, which she enjoys drinking. Yuan smiles. In the next scene, when Jang arrives home, Li is already there. Seeing the shopping bag in her hand, Li asks, "What did you bring?" Jiang then sees the pads and asks, "Why did you buy so many pads?" Jiang replies, "They were on discount, so Yuan bought them. I didn't." Li says, "These are the same pads and thermos cup Yuan bought from my shop. What's going on between you two?" Jiang says, "It's nothing. Yuan and I were locked in a room and my period started, so he bought pads for me." In the next scene, Jiang is reading a book. Yuan comes in and she hides her face behind the book, then smiles. She sits back in her place. Yuan intentionally drops his pen under Jiang's table. As they both bend down to pick it up, they look at each other. Yuan then asks, "Where is the list?" Jang says, "It's ready." In the next scene, Jang goes to Mr. Liu Young, the former accountant of the Kelling Company, who had been fired. She says, "I can bring the chairman's history to light in front of everyone." However, despite agreeing several times, he says, "I can't help you." Jang is then thrown out of the house. In the next scene, the meeting is taking place where Yuan says, "I suggest we remove the chairman of Kelling Company from his post." The chairman asks, "Do you have any proof against me?" At that moment, the fired employee Liu Yuan enters and says, "I wanted to tell you the truth earlier, but they fired me." The chairman says, "He destroyed the documents, so I fired him. He is accusing me to take revenge." Xiao Na then says to Jiang, "Because of you, we've been insulted. Now what proof will we show the chairman?" Jiang replies, "I need some time. I'll find out everything." Xiao Na says, "I can't give you time. It would be better if you resign from your job." In the next scene, Yuan notices that Jiang is very upset. She comes out and Yuan says, "Get into my car." Jiang refuses. Yuan says, "If you don't listen to me, your last chance will be gone." She finally gets into his car. Yuan says, "I know you're upset, but don't cry or I'll have to call an ambulance." Jiang asks, "Are you happy seeing me get fired from my job?" Yuan replies, "Working in MH Company is very hard." She says, "Don't worry, little aunt will take all the blame and quit her job." Yuan says aunt never gives up. She says, "What? A wheel will never understand the feelings of an ant." Yuan says, "I want you to quit your job at MH Company, but I don't want you to take the blame and quit like this." She asks, "Did you find any proof?" He replies, "The matter isn't over yet." She says, "Okay, I won't give up either." Then he asks Jang, "What's the reason for joining MH Company?" She says, "After we separated, my father passed away, and this was his last wish that I work at MH Company." In the next scene, Yuan is standing on the terrace and sees Jiang going somewhere. He texts her, "Where are you going at this hour? Are you going to murder the chairman?" She replies, "That's not my intention, but if I do, you'll be my first target." Yuan responds, "Then hurry up and do it." Next, Jiang meets Mr. Dulé and shares everything with him. Then a lady brings Jiang a flower bouquet and says, "Today is the anniversary of our restaurant, so we are giving flowers to the ladies." Jiang accepts the bouquet. In the next scene, Jiang is arriving with him, and Yuan thinks she has no fear of losing her job and she's dating someone. Then Mr. Dulé gives Jiang the bouquet. Yuan is shocked, thinking, she even accepted flowers. She wasn't like this before. In the next scene, Liu Young is talking to someone about how the chairman gave him 50 lakh currency to keep quiet. Yuan arrives and asks, 50 lakh currency has been deposited into your bank account. Where did it come from? Liu Young responds, "I don't need to explain anything to you. Get out of my house." Yuan says, "I found out that you took the price for keeping your enemy's secret." Liu Young replies, "I don't want to get involved in this matter." Yuan says, "Help me, or I'll end your game with one call." Liu Young remains silent. Yuan starts making the call. Yuan then asks, "Does anyone else know about this?" Meanwhile, Li looks out from her room and sees many papers scattered around. Jang is standing, sleeping upright. Li shakes her and says, "You haven't slept at all, have you? The whole night?" Then she shows her a paper and asks, "What is this?" Jang replies, "I've been looking for this." Li thanks her, kisses her, and leaves. In the next scene, Jang is at the office. Her colleagues say, "We thought you weren't coming anymore." She tells her, "At 2 p.m. today, MH Company and Kelling Company are going to sign the contract." Hearing this, Jang is shocked. One of her colleagues says, "This is all happening because of you." At that moment, Yuan arrives and says, "By belittling your colleagues, you're proving yourself unqualified." Then she apologizes. Jang follows Yuan and asks him, "Is the contract true?" He replies, "Yes, that's true." Then she says, "I found out that Liu Young lied to us. There is another person who knows about the chairman's corruption." She then provides all the information about that person. Yuan tells her, "I thought you were as foolish as I imagined, but you're not. I thought you were enjoying a date with flowers at night, but you've done a good job." He then tells her, "Stop Mr. Fan from signing until I arrive," and then he leaves. In the next scene, the chairman of Kelling Company arrives. She then messages Yuan, "The chairman has arrived." But Yuan doesn't reply. He meets a man who was a car racer. On the other hand, Jang brings the agreement. He begins to sign, but the pen doesn't work. Then there's a scene showing how Jang had emptied the pen's ink before the meeting to buy some time. The chairman says, "This pen isn't working." The director suggests bringing another pen, but the chairman says, I have a pen, and then he signs. Then Mr. Fan is about to sign when Jang shows him the information about the man and says, this person knows about the chairman's corruption. The chairman says, you're accusing me again. Mr. Fan tells Jang to leave. At that moment, Yuan arrives and says, your truth is out because this man who knows about your corruption is with me. The man arrives and the chairman is shocked. The man then reveals the chairman's truth to everyone. In the next scene, Jang gives Yuan a packet of snacks and thanks him, saying, you helped me, otherwise I would have been fired. Then they go out for dinner together. During dinner, Yuan tells Jang, you've escaped being fired from MH, but don't think I won't fire you. I will fire you for sure. Hearing this, Jang says, now I have a teacher who will teach me everything about the investment department. Yuan asks, which teacher? Jang replies, there's a man who knows a lot about the investment industry and has many ideas. Yuan hears this and leaves. Then he stops at a place and starts looking at something. Jang asks, what happened? Yuan shows her a poster that says, the best couple photo wins a cooker. Jang says, we don't need this, I'll just get it for you anyway. But Yuan replies, this will be special, and you wanted a second chance to say thanks, right? Well, this is your second chance. They go there, and a lady asks, are you two a couple? Jiang says no, but Yuan says yes. Then Yuan gestures to her, and Jiang says, yes, we are a couple. They go into a room to take a photo, where Yuan pulls Zhang's hair. The photo is taken, and Jang says, what did you do? Then she starts deleting the photo, but Yuan stops her and saves it. Yuan says, the pose you made was old-fashioned. Then, Yuan and Jiang show the photo to the lady, and she says, this will not be accepted. We need a photo that shows love. Jiang starts to leave, but Yuan takes her back to the photo room. There, they try different poses. Jiang says, this time, we need to make the shape of a heart. They take the photo, but a quarrel ensues between them, causing Jiang to spill water, and the entire system shuts down. The lady says, you will have to pay a maintenance charge. Yuan agrees, and then the lady gives them the photos. Yuan accepts them, and the lady also gives him the cooker. But Yuan says, I deny this. Then Yuan comes out and says, I have accepted your thanks. Now let's go home. In the next scene, Yuan is looking at photos of himself and Jiang in a photo box. A flashback is shown, where Yuan brings Jiang to take a photo when they were children. Jiang refuses, but Yuan forces her to take the photo. Yuan smiles as he looks at these photos. Then Chang sends a message asking Yuan for help. In the next scene, investors are treating Chang to drinks, and Yuan also starts drinking with them. Then everyone gets drunk and leaves. Chang tells Yuan, boss, you saved me, otherwise I would have been drunk like them. Yuan is drinking, and Chang asks, is everything okay? Did you have a fight with Jang? Yuan replies, Jang told me about her teacher who is guiding her in the investment industry. Chang says, I think you're feeling jealous. If you want, I can give you some tips. In the next scene, Yuan is thinking about Chang's tips. Chang had given 2 tricks to gain girls' attention. The first was to help them with whatever cute thing they like without hesitation, and the second was to be sympathetic. Yuan says to his dog, the hard work you've done will be useful today, so behave well. He then leaves his dog at Zhang's house, and Zhang comes to return it. Yuan pretends to be sick. Zhang starts to leave with the dog, but Yuan starts coughing loudly. Zhang asks, what happened to you? Yuan replies, I have had a fever since last night. Zhang checks his fever and says, yes. You have quite a high fever. Let's go to the hospital. Yuan says, I don't want to go to the hospital. Jiang begins to leave, and Yuan knocks over a glass of water saying, I need to drink water. Jiang gives him water and says, I will leave now. But Yuan says, I'm very hungry. Could you make something for me? Jiang makes something and says, you're not feeling well, so you should eat this. This is the first time I've made it, so it might not be great. Just eat it quietly. She then starts to leave, but Yuan says, I can't sit up, could you feed me? Jiang feeds him. Just then, Jiang receives a message from Mr. Dulé, in which he says, today I will tell you about releasing pressure. Jiang replies, today it's not possible, let's do it tomorrow. Mr. Dulé agrees. Yuan tells Jiang, you should focus on your patient. Jiang continues feeding him and says, eat quickly, I have more work to do. She starts to leave, but Yuan says, could you give me a book? Jiang can't find one, but then brings him a romantic novel. Yuan says, read this book to me. Jiang starts reading it aloud. Then Yuan says, stop now, I'm going to rest. Jiang says, good night, and leaves. In the next scene, Yuan is looking at a post by Jiang, in which she appears to be out somewhere. The next scene shows Li looking at Xiao's photo. Yuan then arrives. Li asks him, how did you come back here? This time I won't give you a discount. Yuan replies, no, I'll pay full price. Yuan then asks her for a favor, saying, "My dog's ball has landed on your balcony. Can you bring it to me?" Lee says, "I can't give it to you right now." He says, "If Jang is at home, ask her to bring it." Lee replies, "No, she went to lunch with Mr. Delay." Yuan asks her about Mr. Delay. Lee tells him that Jang had mentioned Mr. Delay has a lot of experience in the investment industry, and he is tall, young, and handsome. Hearing this, Yuan leaves. In the next scene, Mr. Delay and Jiang are having lunch together. He says, "After lunch, I will take you somewhere." He then takes her to a fragrance chamber. He asks her to smell a perfume, and Jiang says, "This is really nice." He says, "This was made for you." Jiang thanks him and takes it. In the next scene, Yuan is waiting for Jiang. Just then, Mr. Dulé arrives to drop Jiang off at home. Jiang gives him a gift with a tie inside. Mr. Dulé thanks her. Then Yuan arrives and asks Jiang, "Is he your teacher?" Jiang replies, "Do you know him?" Yuan shakes his hand and says, "Thanks for guiding my staff." Then both of them tightly hold each other's hands and squeeze them. Then Mr. Dulé Jiang, placing his hand on his shoulder, says, "Thanks for this gift." Yuan angrily says, "I didn't know that the CEO of GE would use such dirty tricks." Mr. Dulé, acting ignorant, says, "I don't know what you're talking about." Yuan says, "You are guiding an employee of your rival company, which means you are using dirty tricks to win the game. But remember, if you do anything wrong, I will hurt you more than before in this game." Mr. Dulé says, "Let's see who does what." Jiang is shocked seeing all this. In the next scene, Yuan and Jang are in the lift. She says, "I didn't know Mr. Dulé was like this. He's completely not like what you said about him." Yuan replies, "He's just using you to beat me." She asks, "How many enemies do you have?" He says, "I'm warning you to be careful and don't trust anyone. Don't share the company's secrets with anyone." Then Jiang messages Mr. Dulé saying, "I'm sorry for what happened today, and now I can't be your student anymore. I hope you understand." In the next scene, Yuan is outside Jiang's room. Then he hides when he hears her coming. As soon as she exits, he follows her. Then they are in the lift. Yuan offers her the lift, but she says, "No, I will manage." As they exit the lift, they get into an argument. Then in the office, Yuan tells Jiang, "Work with me. This is your chance to prove yourself." Then he tells everyone to come downstairs, saying, "We need to go to Wansi Company," which makes all the employees happy. They all go to Wansi Company. There, a girl is shown going to the washroom. Just then, some girls lock her inside the washroom. Then Yuan, with the manager, starts inspecting the company. Jiang tells her colleague, "I'm going to the washroom." Then she enters the washroom and hears a voice. She opens the door and finds a girl inside. Jiang asks, "Who locked you in here? I'll call the police." But the girl refuses and leaves. Jiang follows her. The girl tells the guard, "Stop the one who is following me." The guard asks her, "Who are you?" She says, "I'm an employee of MH Company." But the guard doesn't believe her and tells her to go to the security department. Meanwhile, the meeting room is shown where the girl bumps into Mr. Wan. Then the girl enters her department where the other girls bully her again. During the meeting, Yuan is looking for Jiang, but he can't find her. At night, Jiang is playing cards with the guards and gathering information about Mr. Wan. One guard tells her about Mr. Wan's hidden room. Just then, Yuan arrives and takes Jiang away. Outside, Yuan scolds Jiang, saying, "You were gambling and drinking with the guards at night." She replies, "I was gathering information my way. I was just one step away. If you hadn't come, I would have gotten all the information." Then Yuan tells her, "Sit in the car," but Jiang refuses. Yuan says, "It's late, and no taxi will be available now. You're a girl, something could happen to you." After hearing this, Jiang sits in the car. In the next scene, Jiang falls asleep in Yuan's car. Yuan moves her hair from her face, and the driver looks at him. Yuan says, "She's my girlfriend." Yuan then wakes Jiang up and takes her to her flat. He tries to open her door with her fingerprint, but he doesn't know which finger to use. He tries several fingers, but the door doesn't open. Tired, he says, "I don't know which finger it is." Jiang tells him the correct one. Looking at her, Yuan is shocked and says, "You were awake. Why didn't you tell me?" She replies, "Why didn't you wake me up?" Yuan says, "Were you pretending to sleep so I would carry you?" They argue, and Jang pushes him. Yuan says, "You pushed your boss. I will take revenge." Jang replies, "Fine, now go home and sleep." In the next scene, Yuan is scolding everyone for mistakes in the reports. Jang asks, "What about my report?" Yuan says, "You all go. I need to give Jang a private lecture." Then he says to Jang, "This information, you collected it your way." He asks her to come closer. He asks, "What's the problem in the report?" She replies, "The guards told me about Mr. Wan's secret room." Yuan asks, "The secret room? Then you must know about it." She says, "I've seen all the offices there." Yuan replies, "I doubt your memory. You forgot your speech as a child." Just then, Chao Na arrives and angrily looks at Jiang. Jang leaves. The next day, Chao Na approaches Jang and says, "If you want to work here, improve your dressing." In the next scene, Yuan is helping everyone with the project. As soon as he approaches Jiang, she stands up. Then when he goes to speak to another member, Jiang steps away. Later, Jiang quickly hands him a file in his office and leaves. Yuan treats everyone for their hard work. Jiang says, "Sorry sir, I have some work," and then leaves. Yuan messages her, "If you're not feeling well, get a checkup." Jiang reads the message, gets angry and says, "We don't chat during work hours," then draws a lot of sheep on the paper before leaving. Yuan watches her. In the next scene, Jiang is going home when she gets a message from Yuan. "I made egg rice, come quickly." She reaches home and finds Yuan standing, staring at her. Yuan asks, "Why are you avoiding me?" She replies, "If your questions are finished, I'll go home." She starts to leave, but Yuan stops her and says, "Instead of drawing sheep on paper, draw them on the wall." They both start drawing on the wall. Yuan draws a wolf, and Jiang draws a sheep. Later, Jiang tells Yuan, "I suspect something is wrong at Wansi company." Just then, Yuan gets a photo and looks at it, then says to Jiang, "What is this? You told me you wouldn't meet Du Li anymore. So how are you both together in this photo?" She says, "We're just friends." Yuan says, "If this photo went to Mr. Fan, how would you explain it?" Jiang has no answer. Yuan then says, "Think carefully about who you want to be friends with." She pauses and Yuan asks, "What's wrong?" She says, "I have something in my pocket for you." She pulls out a finger heart from her pocket, showing it to him, which makes Yuan smile. She says, "I know you care about me a lot, but you also scold me a lot." Then she shows him the finger heart again as she leaves. Yuan says, "Okay, now go." After she leaves, he smiles. An employee Xin Xin is outside, listening to their conversation. Then Chao Na arrives and asks her, "What happened?" She says, "Zhang has been in the room for a long time." Chao Na tries to go inside, but Zhang comes out and Chao Na looks at her again, and she leaves. In the next scene, Zhang thinks about the girl. Everyone bullies her, but she doesn't tell anyone anything. There must be something going on. I need to find out. Zhang then goes to Wansi company. She sees some girls put fish in the other girl's water. When the girl comes to drink the water, Zhang tells her, "There's fish in it." Then she asks the girls, "Why did you do this?" They reply, "What's it to you?" Jiang says, "I'm an employee of MH company." The girls apologize. Then Jiang talks to the girl alone. "What do you want to say about Mr. Wan? That day, the girls were bullying you. If you have a problem, you can tell me. I'll help you." The girl says, "I participated in a contest but couldn't perform well. One day Mr. Wan called me and said I would get another chance, but I had to sign papers for that. Then he gave me something, which made me dizzy. He started touching me. When I regained consciousness, I was somewhere else, and Mr. Wan was with me. When he fell asleep, I ran away. Later I found out it was his secret room in his office." Then she gives Jiang her phone. "There's a recording in it. This could be evidence." Jiang listens to the recording and says, "I'll help you." Just then, a man takes their photo and sends it to Mr. Du Li. In the next scene, Jiang is going home when she feels someone is following her. She runs and bumps into Mr. Du Li. He asks her, "What happened?" She tells him. Mr. Du Li says, "I'll drop you off." She asks, "Why were you here?" He replies, "I came to meet the CEO of Wansi company." Jiang asks, "Mr. Wan, do you know him?" Mr. Du Li says, "Yes, since childhood, but pretty girls should stay away from him." Then he drops her off at home and says, "Don't roam around outside at night. If you need to go anywhere at night, call me, I'll come." Yuan watches them from above. After Mr. Du Li leaves, Yuan approaches Zhang and says, "I told you to stay away from Mr. Du Li." The next day, Zhang arrives at Wansi company to meet Mr. Wan. She asks, "Why did you invite me?" Mr. Wan says, "A few days ago, my student told you something about me. She lied, so forget about her." Then he gives her some money. "I'm sure you understand what I mean." Zhang says, "I won't take this money," and leaves. After stepping outside, she checks her mobile where she has recorded the entire conversation. Then Mr. Wan calls someone and says, Zhang needs to be taught a lesson. Later, when Zhang is leaving, she feels someone is following her. A man approaches and says, "Give me your phone." He takes her phone and runs away. Zhang follows him and tries to get the phone back, but he pushes her, making her fall, and the phone breaks. The man runs away. Yuan calls her, but the number is switched off. Then Yuan sees Jiang and asks, "How did you get hurt?" He picks her up and takes her home. He applies ointment to her injury and says, "So Mr. Wan is misusing his power and harassing that girl. His crime scene is that secret room. And the recording that girl gave you, where is it?" She replies, "It was in my phone, which got stolen." Yuan then says, "Stay away from that girl in this matter. Mr. Wan had your phone stolen." Jang says, "I need to solve this matter." He says, it's dangerous. Then Jang starts to leave and says, I'll take care of everything. In the next scene, Yuan and his assistant are reviewing the profiles of Wansi company employees. Yuan tells Chang to set up a meeting with Wan. Chang gives him a broken phone and says, you asked me to find out about this phone. I found it, but it's broken. Yuan asks him to bring a new one. In the next scene, Mr. Dooley calls Jang, but her number is off. Then he comes outside her house. Yuan arrives there and tells him, I had warned you to stay away from Jiang. Mr. Dooley responds, since when did you start caring so much about your employee? Yuan says, I just don't want any company matters to be misused. Then Jiang arrives, and Mr. Dooley sees her. He tells Yuan, I will enjoy it when you see that girl with someone else. Yuan punches him. Jiang stops Yuan and says, he's my friend. Yuan says, when you know the truth about him, you won't call him a friend. Then he leaves. Jang apologizes to Mr. Dooley. He says, you didn't hit me, so why are you apologizing? She says, all right. Then he gives her a book and says, I called you, but your phone was off. Jang says, someone stole my phone. The next day, Jang waits for the elevator to go to the office, but Yuan is there. She says, I'll go in the second round. Then Chang asks Yuan, did you fight again? Yuan doesn't answer. In the next scene, Jiang is talking cheerfully with a colleague. Yuan arrives and says, people have so much time to enjoy. Quickly check the data and get the report ready for me. Later, Jiang brings some food, and Chang starts eating. Yuan also starts eating, but Jiang finishes all the food and leaves. In the next scene, Jiang is taking a shower when the water runs out. She quickly goes out and calls the management department saying, please turn on the water in my flat, it's an emergency. They reply, the water is finished. She looks around the house but finds no water. Then she goes to Yuan's house and says, I need to use your bathroom. Yuan says, sure, go ahead. Jang quickly goes to the washroom. While Jang is washing her hair, Yuan's dog comes in. Jang starts screaming loudly. Yuan comes and asks, what happened? She says, get the dog out. He replies, it's not okay for me to come inside. She says, I'm just washing my hair. Get him out. He enters and starts taking the dog out. In the meantime, Jang kicks Yuan, causing him to fall as her face is covered with soap and she doesn't realize it. Yuan then says, you did this on purpose. Jang replies, no, actually there was soap on my face, so I didn't see. Then Jang applies cold water to Yuan's injury. Yuan looks at her and she says, if you keep staring at me like that, I'll take your eyes out. He says, I'm not looking at you, I'm looking ahead. She then finds her broken mobile. He says, I've called someone to repair it, but I don't know if that data can be recovered. Then he says, if that girl takes a stand, anything could happen. Jang says, I told her to do that. She leaves after that. In the next scene, Jang finds out that the girl has filed her case. On the other hand, media people gather outside Mr. Wan's office. Mr. Wan comes out and says, this girl has reported against me. If she has proof, she should bring it to me. In the next scene, Yuan is distributing the projects to everyone. Then he tells Jiang, come to the meeting with me tomorrow. Just then, Chao Na comes and asks, will I go with you to the meeting tomorrow? Yuan says, there's no need, I've already told Jang to go. Chao Na gets very angry. She calls Jang into her office and gives her a lot of files saying, get these checked and give them to me by tomorrow. Then Jang goes outside and starts looking at the files. Xin asks, these were already in order. Why is she given to you again? Jang replies, I don't know. Then her colleagues start helping her. In the next scene, the girl receives some unclothed photos of herself. Looking at them, she gets shocked. Meanwhile, Jang stays up all night to complete her work. Then Chao Na comes to her and tells her, the girl has withdrawn her case against Mr. Wan. Jang becomes very upset. In the next scene, Jang calls the girl and asks her about it. The girl tells her, Mr. Wan blackmailed me by sending my unclothed photos, so I had no other choice. Jang says, I'll come to meet you. Then Jang goes to meet her. Meanwhile, Mr. Wan visits the girl's house. He tells her, stay away from these matters because this won't affect me, but your life will be ruined. He offers her a deal, saying, you can set your life again. Just then, Jang knocks on the door. The girl goes to open it, but doesn't. She tells Jang, go away, I don't want to be involved in this. Jang says, all right, I respect your choice. Then she leaves. Mr. Wan tells the girl, does this mean you accept my offer? Later, Yuan tells Jang, I have sent you a location. Go there and try to recover the data from your phone. Once the task is complete, come to the company quickly. So Jang does exactly that. The location turns out to be the shop where Lee works. Jang calls a boy named Xiao at that shop and gives him her phone, saying, please recover the data quickly. After a while, the data is recovered. Xiao says, I have transferred all the data to your new phone. Jang, happy, heads to the company. Then Yuan receives a message from Jang saying, the data has been recovered. He signals to an employee. He stands up and says, don't make decisions so quickly. I have sent a message to everyone's mailboxes. Please check it. In the report, it says that Mr. Wan has committed corruption. Mr. Wan says, this is a lie. How could I do this to my company? Just then, Jang arrives. Yuan says, now we have evidence. He then plays the recording. Mr. Wan says, this is a fake recording. Jang says, okay, if it's fake, then look at this. Then she shows another video in which Mr. Wan is giving her money. Now Mr. Wan says, you're blackmailing me again. If you have any solid proof, bring it forward. Then the victim girl comes forward and says, I will give you proof. Mr. Wan looks at her angrily. Then the girl reveals the whole truth to everyone. Yuan notices a camera through which Mr. Du Li has been watching and listening to the whole meeting. Yuan signals him. In the next scene, Jang tells Yuan, because of work, I couldn't sleep. Today, I will sleep well. Yuan says, all right, but first listen to some of your mistakes. Then he tells her how dangerous it was to go alone to Mr. Wan's office to record. Jang says, sorry, I won't do this again. Then a noise comes from her stomach. Yuan asks, what happened? She says, I haven't eaten anything since yesterday. Yuan tells her, come to my place, I'll cook something for you. Later, Yuan is waiting for Jang to come. When she arrives, she is holding many packets. Yuan asks, did you bring gifts for me? She replies, no, I had some fruits at home. I thought we could share them. But Yuan says, no, I'll make noodles for you. Then he goes to the kitchen. Jang picks up a cube and tries to fix it, but she can't. So Yuan comes and fixes it for her. She asks, do you still have this? He replies, yes, because I'm its owner. Then she tries to solve the cube, but she can't. Yuan teaches her how to solve it. Then they both look at each other. Later, they are eating noodles. Jang says, you cook very well. Then Li tells Jang, please invite that boy Xiao to the movies. But Jang says, I don't even know him. Then Jang remembers, Yuan must know Xiao. So she goes to Yuan's house, but Yuan isn't there. Jang looks through the window. Then Yuan arrives and Jang tells him, Li wants to go to the movies with Xiao. He always uses the Wi-Fi at the shop, and Li is attracted to him. Yuan is shocked at the Wi-Fi part. Then he asks, what's going on between them? Why do you want to go to the movies with him? Jang says, not me. Li wants to go. Yuan says, Xiao and I are friends. I'll convince him to go for the movie, but I have one condition. You have to come to the movie with me. Jang agrees. Then they wait for Xiao to arrive. When Xiao arrives, he calls Yuan brother. Jang and Li are both shocked. Yuan explains, we are cousins. Then Yuan asks Xiao, why you're using Li's shop's Wi-Fi? Xiao says, the university Wi-Fi is very slow, so I use the her shop's Wi-Fi. Then everyone goes to watch movies. Li says, we'll watch different movies. Jang says, okay. Then Li and Xiao are watching a horror movie. Li tries to touch Xiao repeatedly, but is unsuccessful. Then she says, I'm scared. Xiao says, you go outside, I'll finish the movie. On the other side, Yuan and Jang are watching an emotional movie. Jang doesn't get sad seeing it, so Yuan starts telling her funny stories. But in the end, Jang gets emotional, and Yuan consoles her by holding her close. She says, that's why I don't watch movies like this. Not even with Li, because she starts crying, and she doesn't console me. Yuan says, I will always come to watch movies with you and console you like this. Jiang says, you are so nice, maybe I have been a little mean. Then a lady comes and says, the show is over, now please leave. In the next scene, Yuan is throwing things out of Jiang's house to call her outside. Jiang comes out and asks, what are you doing? Yuan says, did you solve that cube or should I do it? She replies, I will do it, and then starts to leave. She throws the things that Yuan had thrown in her house and says, don't do this again from now on. The next day, the flat manager comes to Jiang and says, a few days ago you had a water issue. If you face any issue, you can inform the building owner. She asks, who is the owner? The manager says, you don't know the owner? He lives right in front of your house, Yuan. Now Jang understands everything. Then she goes to her old landlady and asks, has your son come here? She replies, no. Jang looks at Yuan's picture and says, I have a friend, he needs a house on rent. The lady looks at the picture and says, I can't rent the house to him. Another lady nearby looks at the photo and says, isn't this the guy you rented your house to? Jang then realizes that all this was Yuan's doing. In the next scene, Chaona announces, now Jang has become a permanent worker at the company. She congratulates her and leaves. Yuan also congratulates her, but Jang ignores him. Next, Jang calls Yuan to the terrace. Yuan says, are you going to officially thank me now? She asks, why did you rent your house to me without telling me? Yuan is shocked. He says, don't misunderstand me, I just wanted you to live in a good place. Jang replies, is this your help? You troubled me so much, it's not like you were getting bored you played this game with me. Yuan asks, is that what you think of me? Jang responds, yes, you are a liar, and I won't trust you. In the next scene, Jiang packs all her stuff and goes to Li's place. The next day, Jang finds out that Yuan has gone somewhere on bussiness trip. Meanwhile, a man hits Yuan's car, and Yuan posts about his accident. Jang sees the post and likes it. Then Yuan thinks, why didn't she message me? Later, Jang removes her like. Yuan thinks, she liked my post and then unliked it. How mean is she? Then he asks Chang, she liked my post earlier, then unliked it. What does that mean? Chang says, just apologize to her. In the next scene, Jiang's senior Mr. Ma tells her, today I have a meeting with Mr. Kim. Will you come with me? Jiang agrees. Her colleague overhears this and informs Yuan, Mr. Ma has taken Jiang to a meeting, and I think she could face some problems. At the meeting, people make Jiang drink a lot. Then everyone tries to touch her. Just then Yuan arrives, pushes everyone away, and takes her with him. They are in the car when Mr. Duli calls. Yuan sees it and picks up the call. Mr. Duli asks about Jiang, and Yuan replies, I don't need to tell you about her. In the next scene, Yuan takes Jiang outside and scolds her. She says, I couldn't have refused Mr. Ma's order. Then she goes upstairs, and Yuan says, come down, I'll catch you. She asks, are you going to make a fool of me again? She starts coming down but falls and Yuan catches her. Later, Yuan takes Jiang to her house and starts leaving. Jiang grabs his hand. Yuan sits there and looks at her. Then he tells Li about Jiang's condition. The next day, when Jiang wakes up, she says, what am I doing in this house? Then she comes out, where Li is making breakfast for her. She looks in the fridge and asks, did you bring all this stuff? Li replies, no, I think Yuan must have brought it. He cares a lot about you. Just look at this house. Everything here is what you like. He could have only kept you here for 2 reasons. Either he wants to hurt you or he loves you. Jiang says, that's not true. That's not true. In the next scene, Yuan meets Jang in the office and says, how many times have I told you that MH Company is not a classroom, it's a battlefield, and you should handle people like Mr. Ma well? She says, now I understand. In the next scene, Yuan comes to Jang and apologizes, and Jang accepts his apology. Yuan smiles. She says, never lie to me again, so he agrees. In the next scene, Jang tells Li, I should rent the same apartment, but Li says, you cannot lower your self-respect. Still, she tells her to think carefully. Later at office, she notices Yuan, and she thinks how to bring up the apartment issue with him. She then goes to Yuan and says, I need to talk to you. He says, go ahead, but she can't say anything, so Yuan starts smiling. Just then, a girl named Lin Shi gives Yuan a file and then starts insulting Jiang. Yuan tells Jiang to prepare the report. Then Lin Shi asks Yuan to have dinner, but Yuan refuses. Then he looks at Jiang, who is doing her makeup, but seeing him, she stops, and Yuan smiles. In the next scene, Jiang doesn't go for lunch, so Yuan comes to her and says, you changed your perfume? She says, yes. Then Yuan says, if you want to talk to me, just do it. Just then, she hears a noise from her stomach, so Yuan smiles and says, I'm hungry, I'm going for lunch. Jang says, I'll go with you. They go for lunch, where Yuan tells her, now are not staying in my apartment, so I'll give it on rent to someone else. Jang agrees, saying, okay. Then Yuan, pretending, talks on the phone. Okay, you can come tomorrow and see the house. Jang tells him, no, I want to stay in that house, but I will pay the rent according to the market rate. Yuan agrees. Then he asks, when will you shift? She says, in 2 to 3 days. He says, I'll have to rent the house to someone else. Jang starts leaving and says, I'm going to shift now. Yuan starts smiling. In the next scene, Jang shifts to the apartment. Then she's talking to Li when Yuan arrives, and Jang asks him to be quiet. Yuan asks, who are you talking to? Li recognizes his voice and says, you shifted to his apartment. Then she asks him to come to her store. Jang asks Yuan, why are you here? He says, I came to welcome you. Just then, Xiao sends a message asking him to come to the store because he has a surprise. He starts leaving, and Jang asks, where are you going? He says, I'm going to the store. Jang says, I need to go there too. In the next scene, both of them are at the store. Li takes Jang outside to talk. Then Xiao and Yuan see them. Li says, then how can you go into that house? She points to Yuan and says, you know what kind of person he is. Jiang also points to Yuan and says, you're misjudging him. Then Jiang tells Li, don't worry, I won't live with Yuan, I'll stay in my own apartment. Then she asks, why did you call me here? Li says, I need to show you something. She takes Jang into the store where Xiao is explaining his new app to Yuan. Xiao says, On this app, when you log in, you will answer some questions, and the couple who gives the same answers will become a perfect pair. Then Xiao says, I need investors for this app. Everyone looks at Yuan. Yuan says, why are you all looking at me? Let's go somewhere outside. They all go to a bar where there's a debate between Xiao and Yuan about the app. Then Xiao leaves. Jang asks, why did you do that? He replies, he's not suitable for the app. In the next scene, Jang says to Yuan, you shouldn't have behaved like that with Xiao. You should have understood his feelings. He replies, I know him well, and developing a dating app isn't right for him because he needs to know about love for the app. Do you know about love? Jang replies, you seem to know a lot about it. He says, yes. Then she says, you must have many girlfriends. Yuan says, no, not even one. Then he says, there is one, but I never told her. Jang asks, tell me, I'll help you. He says, no, it's a secret. Maybe when she finds out about my feelings, she'll end our friendship. They look at each other and Jang says, it looks like it's going to rain. We should go home. In the next scene, Li designs a poster for Xiao's app. Then she calls Jang and tells her to ask Mr. Dooley to invest in Xiao's app. In the next scene, Yuan logs into the app. Mr. Dooley is also using the app to find mistakes. Jang also uses the app at the same time. All three of them log in with their fingerprints. Mr. Dooley's pairing doesn't match with Jang, but Yuan and Jang's pairing matches. Then they both talk on the app. In the next scene, Yuan is looking for Jang but cannot find her. She is talking to Li on the rooftop. Yuan arrives and says, does Shanghai feel like a big city to you? She says, no, otherwise we would never have met. Then Jang is about to go home, and Yuan says, I will be late today, so take care of my dog. She asks for the door code, and he tells her it's 0905. Jang asks, is it your birthday today? He says, no. She asks, what happened on this date? He says, we met again on this date. Then he leaves. Jang smiles after that. The next day, Yuan asks his assistant, where's Jang? Chang says, she is on leave. In the next scene, Yuan comes home and calls Jang, but her number is off. Then he sees a post from Li where she is with Mr. Du Li. Yuan becomes very angry. He then calls Xiao, come to me quickly. In the next scene, Xiao and Jang are coming home, and the lights start flickering. Jang gets scared and goes to her house. Xiao goes to Yuan and asks, what happened? Yuan says, why did you go for camping today? Xiao says, I met an investor, so we went there for activities. Yuan asks him about Mr. Du Li. Xiao says, he is my investor. Yuan is shocked and scolds him a lot. Xiao says, I will develop my app and show it to you. Then he leaves. In the next scene, Yuan is avoiding Jang at the office. Jang thinks, is he mad at me? Then she goes to Yuan and asks, why did you call Xiao so urgently yesterday? Yuan tells her, keep the files on my desk. She replies, I already placed them there. Then she shows him a finger heart, and Yuan smiles. He says, you should be working in a comedy theater instead of this company. Jang says, you look very good when you smile. In the next scene, Chao Na is hosting a party. Jang is sitting next to Yuan. Chao Na says to Yuan, do you remember that party where I was very drunk and you took care of me and dropped me home? Yuan says, I remember. In the next scene, Jang feels jealous thinking about how many girls he spends time with. Then she starts talking to her partner on the Westworld app, who is Yuan. She asks, are you asleep? He replies, no, and they continue talking. Suddenly, Yuan gets a stomachache and takes a tablet. In the next scene, Jang notices the bathroom pipe is broken. She then goes to Yuan and tells him. Yuan comes and joins. Then he starts feeling pain in his stomach. She then says, are you trying to fool me like last time? Do I have to make something for you again? Yuan says, no, I really have pain in my stomach. Jang gives him some medicine and says, go to the hospital for a checkup. Yuan says, no, I need to attend the meeting. Jang says, is work more important than your health? Yuan says, I'll go to the hospital, but first let me finish my work, then we'll go. In the next scene, Yuan and Jang are going to the office. Yuan says, don't drive fast, I'm not feeling well. Jang says, I want you to finish your work quickly so I can take you to the hospital. Yuan says, yes, this meeting is very important. Then she drives faster. At the office, Yuan starts feeling pain in his stomach, and Jang is watching him. Yuan then starts to faint, and Jang catches him. She then takes him to the hospital, where the doctor checks him and tells them, Yuan needs surgery today. They agree. Yuan has to lie on a stretcher for the surgery, but he resists. Jang says, such a big businessman, afraid of a small surgery? Yuan lies down and says, I'm not afraid of surgery. Then he says, if something happens to me, tell my parents and Xiao. Take care of my dog. Jang says, since you've shared so much, give me the password to your bank account too, so I can use it. The nurse then comes and takes Yuan away. In the next scene, Yuan has undergone surgery. Jang asks, when will he regain consciousness? The nurse says, he will wake up in 2 to 3 hours. Jang sits beside Yuan. She looks at him closely and says, I didn't know you were so handsome. She then says, you look so good lying here quietly. She holds his hand and promises, then takes a photo of them. She falls asleep beside him. In the next scene, when Yuan regains consciousness, Jiang is not beside him, but Chao Na is. She asks Yuan, how are you now? Yuan says, I'm fine now. Chao Na leaves. Then Jiang is returning home from the hospital when Yuan, pretending to be in pain, calls her back to the hospital. She reaches the hospital and asks about Yuan. The staff tells her, he is fine now. Yuan looks at her and closes his eyes as if resting. Jiang approaches him and asks, are you better now? Yuan pretends, I'm in a lot of pain. Jiang asks, where does it hurt? Then she starts playfully hitting him. Yuan grabs her and pulls her close. He asks, why are you hitting me? She says, because you made me lie about your condition. In the next scene, Yuan returns home. Jiang starts preparing food for him. Yuan says, I'll help you. But Jiang tells him to sit down. I'll do everything. After preparing the food, she brings it to him. Later, Jiang goes to the office, and Chang asks her about Yuan. She says, the doctor has transferred him to home care. Chang says, it felt so good when the boss wasn't in the office. Jiang smiles and says, I'll definitely tell Yuan that. Then Chang goes to Yuan's house and tells Yuan him, I lied to my girlfriend that I am CEO of MH Company. Now my girlfriend is coming. Please let me stay at your house for a few days. Yuan is angry, but after thinking for a moment, Yuan agrees. He says, I will stay in my other house. In the next scene, Chang brings his girlfriend to Yuan's house. Yuan packs his things and moves into Jiang's house. Jiang initially refuses to let him stay, but later agrees. In the next scene, Jiang comes out and sees Yuan cooking. She tastes the food and says, it's very delicious. Yuan asks, now tell me, who will sleep on the sofa and who on the bed? Jiang says, it's my house, so I'll sleep on the bed and you sleep on the sofa. Yuan prepares to sleep on the sofa, but Jiang says, you sleep on the bed, I'll sleep on the sofa. Later, when Yuan is about to sleep on the sofa, Jiang pretends to be asleep and Yuan says, you look cute when you sleep, but you're not actually that cute. He gets close to her, but doesn't kiss her. Jiang is very happy after hearing this. In the next scene, Jiang gets a call from Li saying, I'm coming to your house. Jiang asks Yuan to hide. When Li arrives, she notices male slippers outside and asks why they are there. Jiang says, they're for protection. Jiang also tells Li, your makeup needs fixing. So Li goes to touch it up. Then Li finds men's underwear and asks why it's there. Jiang says, it's very comfortable, so I bought it. Li doesn't believe her and says, tell me the truth. Jiang finally admits everything. Li then says, so Yuan is living with you. Did something happen between you two? Jiang says, what are you talking about? She then smiles. In the next scene, everyone is at Xiao's app launch party. They are all having fun. Yuan keeps messaging Jiang, saying, my wound is hurting, come home. When Jiang arrives, Yuan is playing a game on his phone. Jiang says, you were in pain? Yuan says, what should I do? Then Jiang asks, who cooked this food? Yuan says, I cooked it. Who else would cook? Jiang starts warming the food, and Yuan comes to the balcony. Jiang follows him and says, it's so cold here. Where's your coat? Yuan says, it should be in the cupboard. Jiang goes to get it, and just then Yuan remembers something, follows her, and they accidentally kiss. Both of them get nervous afterward. In the next scene, Yuan is explaining something to everyone at the office when Jiang starts daydreaming. Everyone asks, what are you doing? Jiang says, I'm doing an octopus mouth exercise. She demonstrates, then stops when she notices Yuan and leaves the room. In the next scene, Jang is thinking about the kiss and is about to bump into something when Yuan catches her. She feels embarrassed and quickly leaves. In the next scene, Jang comes in and sees Yuan, asking him to sit down. Then Yuan says, I will show you magic. Then he makes such a face and looks at her, to which Jiang says, you look ugly. Then he makes the same face at Jang. Then they both start dancing. Then Yuan says, now you're fine, right? Then both of their phones receive a message from that dating app. You are the first couple of Westworld, so we are inviting you both to an offline activity. Please make sure to come. Then Jiang receives a voice message from Li saying, the time and date for our Westworld offline activity have been fixed. You should come too. Hearing this, Yuan becomes angry and starts looking at Jiang. At that moment, Jiang also starts looking at Yuan. In the next scene, Yuan and Jiang arrive at the couple's activity location and realize that through the app, they were actually dating each other. Seeing this, they both feel very happy. When Lee sees them, she says to Xiao, "How can these two be a couple? Your app is giving wrong results." To this, Xiao says, "No, my app doesn't give wrong results. One day, these two will be together." In the next scene, Xiaona and Yuan goes to dinner with a client. Seeing the place, Yuan says, "Why hasn't the client arrived yet?" Xiaona tells him, "No client is coming." After that, Xiaona expresses her feelings to Yuan and says, "I like you." Yuan directly tells her, "I don't like you. We work together and are good friends." Hearing this, Xiaona gets angry and starts to leave. While getting up, she accidentally spills coffee on Yuan's clothes. Yuan goes to the washroom to clean his coat. Meanwhile, Jang is waiting for Yuan at dinner. When Yuan doesn't arrive, Jang calls him. Xiaona answers the call and says, "We are having dinner together." Hearing this, Jang becomes very angry, goes to her room, and starts venting her anger. In her anger, she begins taking Yuan's clothes out of the closet. At that moment, she notices a box. Inside the box, there is a letter. It's the same letter Yuan had written for Jiang during childhood. Reading the letter, Jiang becomes very happy to know that Yuan has liked her since childhood. Then she goes to meet Yuan. When she meets Yuan, they hug and kiss each other. Afterward, they both confess their love. While returning home, Jiang and Yuan kiss each other near their house. Just then, Xiao sees them and starts recording a video. When Jiang notices him, she tells Yuan, "Xiao is recording our videos." Yuan chases after Xiao and catches him. Yuan tells him, "Delete this video." But Xiao says, "I will only delete it if you both give me an interview." After thinking for a while, Jiang and Yuan agree to give the interview. And then Xiao starts asking random questions to Yuan. Yuan gets angry with all this and drives Xiao away. While Xiao is leaving, Yuan tells him to delete the video, but Xiao doesn't delete it and runs away. After confessing his feelings to Jiang, Yuan feels very happy. When he comes to the office, he starts dancing and talking cheerfully with everyone. When his assistant requests leave, he grants him 3 days off. On the other hand, Xiaona behaves very rudely with Jiang. She gives Jiang so much work that she doesn't have time to talk to Yuan. When everyone leaves the office at night, Jiang is still working there. Yuan comes to her and they start talking. Just then, Xiaona arrives to collect some documents. Seeing her, Yuan hides under the table. After Xiaona collects her documents and leaves, Yuan pulls Jiang under the table and they kiss each other. On the other hand, Li confesses her love to Xiao, but Xiao rejects her because their dating app match was only 1%. That's why he refuses her. In the next scene, Jiang brings Yuan to meet her mom. Mom thinks that Yuan is Jiang's boyfriend. Then Mom asks Yuan, "Are you Jiang's boyfriend?" To this, Jiang replies, "No, he is my boss." Hearing this, Mom gets very angry. Then Mom makes Yuan do all the household work, and he does all of it. At night, when they are together, Mom sees them and realizes that they are a couple. Seeing this, Mom goes to her room and becomes very happy. The next day, they are having dinner together. Just then, Jiang's mom finds Jiang's MH company card. Seeing this, she becomes very worried and tells Jiang, "You should quit working at MH company." Then Yuan goes to meet her and asks, "Auntie, what happened? Why are you saying this?" Mom tells him, "My husband started a food company, which MH company was providing financial support to. But later, they wanted to change some things. When my husband refused, MH stopped providing financial support and even put false accusations on him. Because of this, my husband had to hand over the company to C Group. On that day, my husband had a heart attack and died." She adds, "My husband didn't do anything wrong. He was just trapped." Then Yuan says, "If that's the case, don't worry. I will find out the truth." Later, Mr. Dooley and Yuan both try to find out how Jiang's father died and why it happened. Then they meet each other and decide to investigate together. In the next scene, Jiang gets stuck in the lift, and Yuan comes and rescues her. Then her health worsens, and she is taken to the hospital. At the hospital, Mr. Dooley also comes to see her, but he sees Yuan there with her. Seeing this, Mr. Dooley gets very angry. Later, he meets Lin Tai Mo, vice president of MH Company, and tells him, "Whatever you did 5 years ago, Yuan found out about it." Then Mr. Dooley tells Lin Tai Mo, "I can help you because I am also against Yuan." Then we are shown a flashback in which it is revealed that Jiang's dad was also killed by Lin Tai Mo, and the director named Linda also knew about it. The next day, some officers come to the office and take Yuan for an investigation, as everyone believes that he has misused the company's funds. This is all part of the planning of Lin Tai-mo and Mr. Du Li. The officers also take Jang for the investigation. In the next scene, Yuan is being investigated, and he tries his best to defend himself, but Lin Tai-mo doesn't let him play any tricks and proves with evidence that Yuan did mismanage the funds. After the investigation, Yuan goes to meet Lin Tai-mo at the office. There, Lin Tai-mo tells him, "I did all this so you couldn't investigate against me, and if you want nothing bad to happen to you and your mom's company, you should quietly leave MH Company." The next day, Yuan announces in the office, "I am leaving the company." He resigns. Jang is very shocked to hear this. Then Yuan meets Jang and breaks up with her. Yuan says, "Very soon, I will be proven corrupt in the company, and I will be banned in the market. So it would be better if I separate myself. I am not worthy of you." Hearing this, Jang slaps Yuan and angrily leaves. The next day, Lin Tai-mo announces to everyone in the office, Yuan has been removed from the CEO position, and now the new CEO is Mr. Du Li. He introduces him to everyone. Jang is very shocked to hear this. In the next scene, Mr. Du Li goes to meet Yuan, and we learn that Mr. Du Li and Yuan are secretly working together. They are both doing this to collect evidence against Lin Tai-mo. Later, there is a board meeting where Yuan and Mr. Du Li present all the evidence against Lin Tai-mo. Lin Tai-mo tries his best to save himself, but just then, Linda arrives and reveals the whole truth. Linda tells everyone everything was planned by Lin Tai-mo, and he had killed Jang's dad. He had taken his medicines, which caused Jang's dad's death. After this, everyone understands who the real culprit is. Then the officers catch Lin Tai-mo and send him to jail. Jang also comes there and realizes that Mr. Du Li and Yuan were working together all along. They did all this to bring justice to her father. Jang also finds out that Yuan broke up with her for this reason. Hearing this, she gets very upset, but Yuan explains everything to her and convinces her. Then we are shown a scene 2 years later where Xiao and Li have gotten married and are living a happy married life. On the other hand, Yuan and Jang also live together in the same apartment and are enjoying their romantic life. Jang is promoted to the vice president position at the office. To celebrate her promotion, Mr. Du Li gives Jang a watch as a gift. Then Yuan notices a new watch on Jang's hand and asks, "Who gave you this watch?" Jang replies, "Mr. Du Li gave it to me." Hearing this, Yuan gets angry. He takes the watch off her hand and says, "Is Du Li still making moves on you?" Then Yuan gives Jang his own watch. Seeing this, Jang becomes very happy. Then Yuan plans to propose to Jang. That night, he secretly takes the size of her finger to make a ring for her. The next day, Xiao and Li come to meet Yuan and Jang. Li tells Jang, "I am pregnant." Hearing this, everyone becomes very happy. Then Li says, "Now you both should also get married." Jiang thinks Li's suggestion is right. Then Yuan proposes to Jiang with a ring and they quickly get married at the court. Mr. Du Li sees their photos on social media and is happy for them. Then a few months later, Jiang tells Yuan, "I am pregnant." Yuan is very happy to hear this. They both hug each other. And with that, the drama ends here. How much rating would you give this drama, and which was your favorite scene? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the videos.